Pitbull, now you're Neo. That's right.
I want all of you tonight. Give me everything tonight. For all we know, we might not get tomorrow.
Oh, now is that Neo? I know this song. I actually know this. Hey, old guy knows the song from 1990 something, I'm sure. Oh, what's this? Early 2000s?
This is probably 2010 or 11. Yeah.
My knowledge of contemporary music ended about then, I think. I hit about 2010, 2011, then I stopped paying attention to anything that was popular in mainstream. Neo. Bumper music today. We're celebrating Neo. Guy I didn't really know I knew, but I guess I do. I know him a little bit. I know that song. We appreciate it. We harumphed Neo earlier today for just laying it out there and telling the truth about gender and parenthood. When I'm the dad of 5 boys and they come to me and say they want to be a girl, I explain to them, you can't be because you were born a boy. And I'm, by the way, not going to sanction you mutilating your genitals to become a girl. No. I live on planet Earth and I'm not allowing that. Okay, Neo. Didn't know you before? Very interested in you now. Well done. Bucking pop culture. He said, listen, if I'm going to get canceled and nobody wants me, I'm a hustler. I'll go find another way to make a living. But that's my opinion and I'm not moving off of it. Okay. I'm a Neo fan now. 610-850-0990. 610-850-0990, and we're online at 990theanswer.com. You probably heard when the Supreme Court originally said, no, you can't just wipe student loan debt off the books. Biden rolled out and said, well, we're still going to do something like that anyway, wiping out something like almost $40 billion of student loan debt owed to the Treasury by roughly just under 1 million people under something called the Income-Driven Repayment Program. It's wonky and a little tedious to explain. Sheng is with us, Litigation Counsel at the New Civil Liberties Alliance. The NCLA is taking this up and fighting this in court. Those of you who are kind of confused, like, didn't we already have a debate on this? And didn't the court already say he can't do that? Biden's moving forward and doing it anyway. And so, Mr. Lee, I'm grateful you're here today. Maybe you can give us some perspective on what he's trying to pull and what you're fighting against. Good morning.
Good morning. And yes, you're absolutely right. The Supreme Court, I thought, set the definitive word on June 30th in the morning when they handed down a decision. But then in that afternoon, Biden announced a whole host of new plans that he had up his sleeves, just waiting, and just to try to circumvent the court's decision. And one of these plans is this adjustment to the income-driven repayment program, and that program was actually enacted by Congress, and it provides for legal forms of forbearance. And how it works is that you have to make a certain number of monthly payments, qualified monthly payments, into the Treasury. Like everybody else, you pay off your loans, you make monthly payments, and it depends. The exact number depends. It's about 20 years worth. It's 10 years if you work for a nonprofit during that time. But you have to make the key is you have to be making monthly payments during this time. And what the department has said is actually we're going to count times where you're not making monthly payments. Non-payments now count as payments for 3.6 million people, and that's going to accelerate their path to forgiveness. And the first tranche of that seems to be this about 1 million of them, and that million is going to cost $40 billion. So if you think the forgiveness for this million is $40 billion, for the whole 3.6 million affected borrowers would be, well north of $100 billion if you do the math and extrapolate. That's the program we're challenging.
Did I hear you correctly? Non-payments will be counted as payments. That's a pretty good gig.
Right. They count forbearance. Forbearance means a period of time where you say, I'm having trouble paying rent and stuff like that, so maybe I don't pay my student loans for a bit. And I think that's a fine thing to do, but then you can't go back and say, well, those 3 years you didn't pay your student loans, now we're going to count them as payments and accelerate you on this path to forgiveness.
The good people
really
at Discover don't do that, Mr. Lee. I can confirm the good people at Discover Card do not operate the same way. They like their monthly payments, and they do not absolve me if I miss it.
and so that's and the worst thing is they did this through a press release. Usually when you make giant regulatory changes, you put them through the Federal Register and you ask for notice and comment. That's sort of what happened to the giant $500 billion program that the Supreme Court rejected. So even though they went through the right procedures, The Supreme Court still held that was unlawful. Here, they didn't even do that. They just, here's a press release. We're not going to actually tell you how much this exactly costs, but this is what we're doing. And, nobody really, our clients weren't really paying attention to this until suddenly in July, the president said, actually, we're going to start by forgiving $40 billion, and that's just the beginning.
And so you have brought suit here. Who are you representing, and what's your case?
Yeah, we're representing the Cato Institute and the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. They're both free market libertarian think tanks, and they believe in fiscal responsibility. And moreover, they're actually hurt by this because they are nonprofit employers. So because under the plan, if you work for 10 years for a nonprofit employer while making monthly payments, you get your loans forgiven. So this actually hurts. This helps nonprofit employers by incentivizing borrowers to work for them. But if you start counting non-payments as payments, then let's say you count 3 years of non-payments as payments, then that service payment while serving requirement goes from 10 years to 7 years. So, their ability to recruit and retain employees for 10 years has now changed to 7 years, or even less, depending on, the exact how many non-payments count as payments. And that hurts their bottom line because they're less able to compete.
I had never considered that until you just said it. Of course, forgiving student loans that's a huge feather in the cap of a lot of employers to woo potential hires, is to say, you come on board with us, we'll pay for your college, or we'll pick up your student loan payments. If Biden was successful, he would take that bargaining chip away from so many millions of people who use that as a means to entice potential hires. I hadn't even considered it. Yeah, that's
right. And our nonprofit clients, they're actually not the ones paying for it. It's paid for through taxpayer funds through the forgiveness program that Congress enacted. Congress said, we're going to incentivize people to go work for nonprofit employers by offering to forgive their loans. And now, if you're forgiving their loans regardless of whether they work for a nonprofit employer, then there's really no incentive for them to go in that direction. And nonprofit employers are ultimately hurt by this.
This is fascinating. So how do you anticipate this will progress? Do you think this is something where the Supreme Court didn't quite button it up, or are they only tasked with dealing what's directly in their face? So it seems like the Biden administration said another way. They knew the Supreme Court wouldn't stand with them broadly, so they had this Plan B ready to launch right away. Does the Supreme Court take this up too then ultimately?
Yeah, and not only that, they had Plan C, D, and E as well. There's a bunch of things up in the air, and we'll be targeting them as well. But this is just the most urgent. And here we asked the court in Eastern Michigan to stop this program immediately, because once the $40 billion goes out the door, it's really hard to get that money back. And so we want to get a preliminary injunction to stop this, and then litigation will proceed, through normal course while the status quo is maintained. And that's the goal. And I think, look, the Supreme Court only takes things case by case, so they can only deal with the facts in front of them. But they also outline broader principles about how canceling student loans is a major political and economic question that only Congress can resolve. That's what they said. And sure, they only dealt with that one particular student loan plan, but that same logic applies to virtually every student loan cancellation plan, and we think that that applies to this case as well.
Victor Davis Hanson wrote a piece. I have been referencing it this week because it's just so brilliant. It's called The Remaking of America, and one of the things was debt is a construct. Debt is a construct. Modern monetary theory. You're not here to talk about this. You're a legal counsel, I understand, but this is yet another outgrowth of this idea that we can just saddle taxpayers with debt people have taken on, wipe debt off the books, and that this is somehow this constitutes monetary policy. This it exacerbates inflation and all of the things we understand. But again, not why you're here. Sheng Li, litigation counsel at the New Civil Liberties Alliance. Thank you for taking up this case. We'll follow it with great interest. I hope you'll come back.
Thank you, and take care.
Telephone number 610-850-0990 if you wish to weigh in. 610-850-0990. Cackle Britches came to Philadelphia. We'll have some of that audio coming up on Philadelphia's AM 990 The Answer.